and welcome to Off the Rack, the comic book review show that comes out each week, well, typically each week, where we talk about comic books that came out last week, tell you a little bit about what happened, and then kind of break it down between art and story, and then sometimes at the end we give you guys some recommendations. I'm Tiffany, and today I'm going to be talking to you all about Detective 1000. Now, you might notice that Sal isn't here, and Sal is really kind of the in charge of behind the whole scenes here, but unfortunately he is traveling today. He's over in Colorado, and we didn't have Off the Rack last week because we were traveling then, so we're doing it. I'm doing it. I'm gonna do Off the Rack. We're just gonna have like kind of a book clubby kind of Off the Rack here, where we just talk about this one book. There's a lot going on in here, so I'm looking forward to diving into it with you guys, and I appreciate your patience with me. So, for those of you who are watching us live, hello, welcome. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. And don't forget, as Sal always says, that the super chats down below are the best way to chat with me today. So feel free to make use of that. It helps us out. It helps keep the lights on here. The lights, they're like over there. You can't see it, but trust me, it's on, and it's all thanks to you guys. And for those of you who are joining us later on, either watching on the channel, thank you so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And for those who are listening to us on podcast networks across the world, thank you so much. And welcome new Spotify friends. If you didn't know, this show's on Spotify. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Anyway, let's jump into it. So this last week, Detective 1000 came out. The landmark issue. It says it right here. 1,000 issues of Detective Comics have come out. And we got a 96-page book celebrating Batman, the Bat family, detecting Bruce Wayne, Alfred, all of them, all in here from many, many talented writers and artists. But the question is, how did they each do telling a story that's super short? Some people do really, really well with that short form, like couple of pages story that really can just pack a punch in very little. And some artists and writers struggle a little bit. So why don't we chat about that? But before we dive into it, I did see we had a couple of early super chats. I am going to jump into those. I'm going to try to hit them up in between us talking about stories. We may not cover every single one in here, but maybe we will. I don't know. Let's just see where we go. Let's go on a little journey together. Praise Yeti 40, thank you for your super chat saying, yeah, bring on Tiff hype. Well, thank you very much. I hope I live up to even a fraction of such hype. Eat the Horse, thank you for your super chat saying King's story was good if you ignore the fact that some or all of those characters are probably going to be brutally murdered by the end of his run, so that we feel Batman suffering or some shit. We will get into some more Tom King. I'm definitely going to be talking about that one today. A little further on, we're going to do that though. Gonna definitely do that. And Flashpool saying, thank you for your super chat, by the way. We don't want those lights to shut off. We really don't. We really don't. Literally, I came into the studio today. The bill was on the door, so I super appreciate it. Thank you guys very, very much for the support. I want to start this off actually with the very first story that's in here, the Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo, Batman's Longest Case. We kick off Detective Comics with a story that celebrates the detective part of Batman, the world's greatest detective. We get a whole story about Batman and how he's had this case from basically since he began being Batman, and he has been investigating it, following breadcrumbs in his spare time, in his spare bat time, basically, traveling all over the world. Each time he thinks he's getting closer, he finds another clue, and it's off to the next location. And this has been going on until finally he gets a clue that leads him back to, of all places, Gotham City. And he hopes, and he just hopes to himself that desperately that this is the final clue, that he'll finally have an answer, even though honestly at the end of the day it is about the chase, isn't it? And when he finally reveals via a bookcase opens up, because you know what, we're gonna go a little old school in this one, right? And there is this splash page is filled with characters that we know from the DC universe. Detective Chimp is there, Kendra is there, Hawkman, Jean, and a new gentleman by the name of Slam Bradley. I am not familiar with him, so if you are and he is not new, that's okay. I'm okay with that. But we're introduced to the Guild of Detection. The Guild of Detection, a creation by Snyder and Capullo, and Batman's finally been inducted into it. He finally cracked the case. And to be fair, Batman's been a little busy. And Batman's a little thrown off by this. He's a little angry and upset about this. Why would you send me on this merry chase? I don't get it. Like, I wanted I just wanted to, like, come here and get an answer. And he's just like, oh, sure, no, you wanted an answer. But at the end of the day, it's not about that. It's about the journey you went on. It's about the detecting part of it, the chase, the going from point A to point B. And for me, where this kind of falls apart a little bit is actually those last couple of panels, where Slam indicates to Batman that the reason he hadn't been inducted earlier, because Batman's kind of like, what? I'm Batman. I don't know if you know this, but like, why am I just being part of this now? I mean, not for nothing, but he's like Martian Manhunter, he's here. What the heck? Come on, John. Why didn't you invite me? And Slam basically is like, you think that you're like old, but in terms of like mysteries, you're not. And Batman ends it by saying, wow. And I'm like, okay, this is just a kind of like fun, lighthearted sort of like truly detective romp in Batman's history. And of course, it's drawn by Greg Capullo, so it looks great. It's actually like very much, I feel like the coloring to it is like, it's lighter, but it has this kind of vintage feel to it, because the story in a way does have a vintage feel. And I kind of dug it. I definitely dug it. I liked it leading off this entire book. It's like, we're talking about detective comics here. Yes, Batman's in it. Yes, Batman's gonna punch people, but let's celebrate the detective. And I think they did a really great job. So cheers to them. One of my gripes about this, though, between this and the next story we're going to talk about, the Kevin Smith story, is actually not a fault of Snyder or Capullo or Smith or Lee. It kind of, for me, has to do with the editing and the publishing of this book, because if you're reading this in actual like physical copy, that end bat that's on that final panel, it's really inside where the spine is and like where the binding is, and so you might miss it. And not that Lee and Capullo have exactly the same art by any means, but if you're not paying attention, which I guess I wasn't, I was like, wait, is this the same continuation? This is a new story? Oh, it's a new story. Oh, okay, because the Snyder Capullo credit page came at the beginning, and the Smith Jim Lee page or credits came at the end of their story. So took me a second. I figured it out, but I was like, I kind of wish they'd done a little title there at the beginning. Would have been very helpful. But you know what? While we're talking about it, let's talk about Kevin Smith coming in to write Manufacture for Use, of course, with art by Jim Lee. What a treat to have Jim Lee, doing some Batman here. It's incredible to look at. The whole book, or this whole story, is totally beautiful. And honestly, it's Kevin Smith. I think the two of them just wanted to work together, have a good time, and Kev really does a good job of making Jim Lee draw a lot of amazing action sequences in this. Kind of like, well, I've got Jim Lee, why wouldn't I have him draw all these crazy sequences? But let's talk a little bit more about the story before we get into the art, and something, again, that initially I kind of missed, and upon second read I was like, oh, that's interesting, and I really dug it. This story focuses on, well, basically Matches Malone. Of course, Bruce is one of his alter egos, one of the characters he uses sometimes to insert himself into the crime world, without having to be Batman, be able to, a little more one-on-one, a lot less, I'm gonna potentially murder you, but not really, but you don't know that, and more like, hi, let's have a conversation in a back alley. This time the idea is that in Gotham, there is something called the Gotham Gift Shop. It's basically a pawn shop, but if you know the right things to say and the right people to talk to, you can get into the back, where this gentleman has collected all of these keepsakes or items from criminals who have fought Batman. If there's a big fight that's gone on in Gotham City, this guy's got an item from it, unless it's like a super deadly thing or the police have it. But basically he has it, and we're treated to a little page where it's just like, ooh, check out all the stuff that's in there, including like the Mad Hatter's hat and Kite Man's glidery kite thing, among other things. But basically, Matches Malone is looking for something very specific. He's just like, I'm not looking for any of this cosplay stuff. I told you what I wanted. Let's get right to the point. And the point is, he's looking for guns. And the guy pulls open a drawer. He's just like, a man who knows what he's looking for. He goes on to explain a couple of the guns that he has there. And then he picks one up, and he says like, oh, do you know what this one is? Like, You remember the Wayne's murder? Well, this is the gun that killed the Waynes. That poor kid, whatever, but like, this is it. And then like, Matches Malone's like Wayne Enterprises. This is the one that killed them? Fine. The guy asks 1,000. He, Bruce or Matches Malone highballs him, gives him 1,500, and walks away with the gun. He now has the gun that killed his parents. Well, at least supposedly. But you know what? For the sake of this comic, we're going to assume that that's the gun. He returns back to the Batcave. He puts it into a case for a second, and Alfred shows up, and he's just like, listen, I get it. You were collecting things, and that is a part of Batman's history. Batman used to collect trophies from those that he fought or defeated, and he's like, I get it. You know, we brought the giant penny in. I threw out my back. You got a big dinosaur. That's totally cool. Anyway, I don't think it's right that you have the gun that killed your parents in the cave. That's not what this is all about. It's just gonna like ruin your life again, just sitting here looking at it. And Batman's like, here's the thing, that's not what this is all about. Yes, like this gun like ruined my life and it changed everything, and it's this stupid hunk of metal that took away everything. But I'm gonna take this and turn it into something very positive. And he takes the gun and he melts it down and he turns it into a plate, which he then forges into basically armor that he can put behind the emblem of his suit, which is awesome. And we see him at the end of the night, or at the end of all of this, saying like, you know, the same metal will protect my heart as a man, and that is justice. And I'm like, that's really cool. Now, reading this story, I'm just going through it, and I'm like, all right, yeah, we got Jim Lee drawing all these crazy fights. He's fighting like Zaz and Catwoman, Killer Croc, Scarecrow, Harley, Bane, you know what I mean? Like all these characters, and I'm like, sure, whatever. It's just really fun, interesting, like fights. All right, we're talking to a guy, obviously, who owns a pawn shop, who, you know, has items from these fights, but I didn't really get the juxtaposition. I totally got it on second read. If you look at each panel, unless you already saw this, each of the villains that Batman is fighting is attacking him in the chest, in that emblem, and it's foreshadowing as to what is going to happen with that gun. And I was like, and it all comes together in a nice, tight, needy package. It's perfect. It's just so, so good. And it's so much fun to see Jim Lee just going all out because he's only telling it in a few pages. So just really cool. Really, really cool. Had a fantastic time reading this story. Just enjoyed the hell out of it. Let's roll on down. You know, we'll do the next one, because the next one I actually enjoyed way more than I thought I was going to. The next one is The Legend of Newt Brody, written by Paul Dini, with art by Dustin Nguyen. I apologize. I don't know how to say his last name. But this story was really great. I enjoyed this one. I wasn't sure what to make of it at first, but as we were going along, I started piecing things together. This felt like a lost episode of Batman the Animated Series. This seriously, to me, felt like, you know, the episode Almost Got Him? That's what it felt like. It was just this really fun, like, expose on this henchman by the name of Newt Brody, who has worked for all kinds of villains, but he's one of the worst henchmen ever. He's just really bad at his job. Just pretty much the worst that he could possibly be. And we get basically these interviews with different characters. Like Harley talks about a story where he totally screwed up and ended up like hitting Harley in the face and getting Batman the detonator for a bunch of like bombs that the Joker had set. So totally failed in that, and the Joker shot him a whole bunch. And he should have died, but I guess he didn't, because then he went on to like totally ruin a caper for Kite Man and Mr. Freeze, and then he ends up with the Mad Hatter, who's just like, all he had to do was watch the door, and he totally fell asleep, and we all got caught. It was a simple bank job, and he's just the worst, and I wish I had killed him, but I didn't. He escapes at some point from jail, and off he goes. We talked to the Riddler, who tries to take the high road. He's just like, actually, it was kind of funny what he did. It was absolutely okay. He's like, you know what, though? At the end of the day, I really wish I had killed him, because he had Batman trapped in this ever-moving maze, and there is a kill code that will save the 6 hostages that are within the maze. And he wants the kill code. Only the Riddler has it. He grabs Newt Brody. Newt immediately gives up the code, and he's like, how did you get the code? He's like, well, it was in your jacket pocket, and I read it, and I memorized it in case you lost it. And so he ruins that caper. Poison Ivy, convinced that she killed him, talks about how he basically destroyed her lab, killed all of her plants, and she thinks she killed him. And there's no way he's coming back from that. And it's revealed at the end that, of course, Newt Brody has been played by almost the entire Bat family. They always take turns playing it. Alfred's played him. Barbara has played him. Dick's played him. And they've all taken their shots at basically screwing over the crooks from the inside out. And I thought that was just such a fun Paul Dini-like twist. And of course, at the end, Damien doesn't want to retire the character just yet, even though he just had this big expose because he wants his shot at it. Just a lot of fun. Again, very lighthearted and very much like the animated series. So if you're an animated series fan, that might have been your favorite. You know, we'll talk about that at the end, who everybody's favorite or which story was everybody's favorite. All right, I'm going to go down into the super chats really quickly to Micronic. Thank you so much for your super chat saying Bat Family photo was the best thing in the book. We will get to that. That's part of the Tom King story. We'll totally talk about that. Adam Asamoah saying, oh, thank you so much for your super chat, by the way. Hey, Tiff. I know I'm not the first, but you guys are still awesome. I just read I Am Giants after some very close to me passed away. I'm so sorry for your loss, but I'm so glad that you did find that book. It's just an amazing, amazing cathartic read. Thanks for the recommendation for a great book, and everyone should read it. No, I absolutely agree. And it finds everybody, I think, at a good time in their lives, and I'm really glad you found it, and I hope things get better, and don't forget you are stronger than you think you are, so keep plugging along. And then also, Master Rants, thank you so much for your super chat. I'm so used to saying cheer. It's a super chat. Agree with that feeling like the animated series. I cracked up reading it. Also, Slam Bradley is the protagonist in Detective Comics #1. Thank you so much for that excellent history tip. That's incredible. And it also makes total sense. Snyder, huge fan of history. It would make sense he would totally go back to Detective, but still put his own spin on things by creating the Guild of Detection. So... That's very much him. I'm not going to talk too much about the Batman's design. It's a Warren Ellis story with art by Becky Cloonan. Oh, hang on. Let me talk real quickly about Dustin's art on the last story real quickly. I thought it was a perfect fit. It had a very animated feel to it, which I think suits Paul Dini. Now on to Warren Ellis with the Batman's design. Again, I'm not going to dive too much into this. This one's more of a... I don't want to say noir because it's not quite that, but it does have a lot of narration and monologuing kind of going on by Batman. It's very much a strategic romp through like Batman's evening, chasing a car full of guys. He leads them exactly where he wants them to. He's got the whole like warehouse rigs with non-lethal deterrents that will certainly put these bad guys in quite a bit of pain, but that won't kill them. They make sure to mention that to us because there are a lot of explosions in this. And it's almost like a chess game or like a game of Risk with Batman. I don't know how I feel about this one. It was fun, but like I think it lacked for me the emotional punch and or character development that we see in some of the other shorter stories. But it is an action-packed romp. Becky Cloonan definitely gets to draw a lot of explosions in this one. So, if you are looking for some explosions, this might be the story for you. And I believe Warren Ellis has not written all that much Batman. So this is kind of interesting. He's written a little bit, but it's kind of interesting to see his take on it. And I think, again, when these guys get these assignments, I'm guessing they have the opportunity to do whatever they want. This is the story Warren Ellis wanted to tell. I'm not saying it's not a good story. Just for me, it wasn't one of my tops, but I thought it was like really cool looking, and I loved the coloring in this one. So great, so great. Let's see. Down in the super chats, Mr. Roboto, thank you for your super chat there, saying, I'm like, no, Sal. No, Sal is traveling right now. And since we didn't have Author Act last week because we were both traveling, I was like, we got to do something. I do wish that he were here so we could have a discussion about this because I have a feeling we'd agree on a lot of the points in this book. And I think we would have some interesting opposite opinions on some of the stories in this book. Maybe we'll do another like recap next time we do Off the Rack and saying, Mr. and Mrs. X, will they last? I would love to know, because for some reason, and I've been buying them via Comixology, I cannot get the purchase to go through. So no spoilers on Mr. and Mrs. X. I just literally, I can't give them my money. I just want to give them my money and they won't let me. I think I'll have to try it one more time. Now let's go down to Return to Crime Alley. Written by Denny O'Neil with art by Steve Epting. Now, Steve Epting's art for me is like really, really cool. It has a really moody, like gritty, grungy, illustratory, very lived in kind of world to it. There's also this like really cool retro effect that they have done with the coloring. You see a little bit of that halftone dot kind of going on in the background. Just very interesting to look at. Overall, though, the story, I don't know how I feel about it. Obviously, Denny O'Neil has a different interpretation of Leslie Tompkins than I do. And you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, that's your interpretation. It's not necessarily incorrect, but it doesn't jive with mine. So it's like giving me a little, you know, conflicting feelings here. Batman is basically on his way to Crime Alley. It's the anniversary of his parents' death. He goes to do his standard, you know, evening's event, joined by Leslie. And, you know, she basically kind of lets him have it that, like, he's got to let it go and like, he's too miserable. And then, like, these punks show up who, like, stole a gun and some Halloween masks, and they try to take her bag. And they don't think it's really Batman. Batman, of course, like, you know, takes him down. And Leslie freaks out that, like, he has gone too far and that, like, you know, she feels badly for them. And that, like, but at the end of the day, she's like, no, I feel bad for you. And it's like, but these kids seriously did have a gun and were running around the streets of Gotham. And honestly, someone could have gotten really hurt. So I'm not really certain what Denny O'Neil was trying to say with this issue. It wasn't really for me. But the art in this I thought was really great. You see even in a couple of the backgrounds of the panels, it looks like there's a fingerprint, like sort of like texture back there. And I was like, that's cool, going along with the detective theme. Just not a huge fan on this one, but at least it was nice to look at. And so those who did dig it, you know, like, you know, you want to give me send over a chat over there, letting me know why you loved it. I would totally like to know, because again, this one just didn't hit for me. I didn't connect with it at all. Then we move on to another story, Heretic, Christopher Priest, Neil Adams. Fun to see Neil Adams doing Batman again in the classic blue, gray, yellow Batman suit, running around. Makes me, of course, like, now that, like, you know, thinking about it for more than a moment, Barbara Gordon's current suit kind of reminds me of the Neil Adams Batman suit. Obviously, hello, I'm a little behind on everything. This story is really just about the League of Assassins, the fact that, like, Bruce Wayne was one time over in Lhasa, and totally got, like, waylaid, lost his wallet. So one of the kids grabbed it, learned about capitalism, but also didn't believe in what the League of Assassins was doing, tried to escape, and they're trying to shut that down. It's all Bruce Wayne's fault, and that's really who they're blaming. The storytelling for this is kind of all over the place, and as much as it's cool to see Neil Adams doing this and, like, doing his thing, wasn't a huge fan of the coloring on this one, and, like, some of the pencils are a little rough, honestly. But, you know, hey, Ra's al Ghul, totally in this. Great that he is here in Detective, and yeah, I mean, this one I think is kind of middle ground for me. Wasn't like, I liked it more than I liked the last one, but it's not one of my tops, honestly. But I did want to mention it, that it's in there. Eat the Horse, or Eat That Horse. Thank you so much for your super chat saying, no idea why Morrison didn't get to do a story here. His and Tony Daniels' run on Batman is what made me a fan. Maybe the fan I am. Wish they had done one more story. That would have been really cool. You never know how these go down. It could just be they approach Morrison. Maybe he didn't have a story he could tell or wanted to tell right now, or he didn't have the time to do it, or they didn't approach him at all. It could be any number of things, honestly. Let's see. What stories do we have left? I know one of them that we definitely Yeah, you know what? Most of we're chatting. We're just going through them all. We're just gonna go through them all. The next issue is I Know by Brian Michael Bendis with art by Alex Maleev and colors by Alex Maleev. Regardless of how you might feel about this story, I think this was some of my favorite art in this book, but I'm also a Maleev fan, and I know he's not everyone's cup of tea, so I completely understand folk not being into this art. But again, you want to talk about gritty, grimy, the dirty underbelly of Gotham City. Maleev totally nails that. His work, his color work is just on point for me in this. And honestly, I just want to see more of his Mr. Freeze desperately. Bendis presents us a story that for me was interesting, but very obvious, and the ending of it didn't surprise me even remotely. It was just like, if you know Batman, you know exactly where this was going. That's not a bad thing. But I don't think he necessarily does anything here that's like, oh my gosh, but like very in keeping in character with the Penguin, which I really liked. Recently over on Bat Issues, Sal did a book that covered the Penguin. Penguin doesn't always get quite as much playtime in the comics, so good for Bendis bringing him in. Literally get a lot of like classic Penguin stuff. We see him full on Cobblepot, hat, umbrella. He's got penguins strapped with things. Oh yeah, it's the Penguin. But this is basically Bruce Wayne in the far-flung future. Like, think Batman Beyond, possibly older age for Bruce here. And he's visited by a decrepit, even more so than what he looks like now, Oswald Cobblepot, who is like, I don't know if you recognize me, but I gotta tell you something, because at the end of the day, I know who Batman was. And I found out years ago. And he immediately tells him it was Bruce Wayne. He nails it. It's not like he's like thinks he's Batman or knows who Batman is, but he's totally wrong. He knows exactly who he is, and he's come to tell Bruce like, I got one over on you. He explains how he figured the whole thing out, about how like the Joker or the Scarecrow would like, gather people up, have meetings, try to figure out how to take down Batman together. Inevitably, they'd try to figure out who he was, the fact that he had to have some real life someplace. Who was Robin? He has to go to school. We could figure all this out. How could he afford all of this? And we see Cobblepot, and like, this is like, I love Maleev's like just using the same panel over and over again as like Cobblepot's like the gears are turning and like he's figuring it out. And he immediately like figures out, he's like, it's Bruce Wayne. And then we see the Penguin tracing and following Bruce Wayne, and he sees him on this date with this like super hot like model, and then there's a crime and the bat signal goes off, and all of a sudden Bruce Wayne's gotta go, and he's just like, nailed it, got it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get all the penguins that I can, and I'm gonna strap them with all the bombs that I can, and I'm gonna take them to Wayne Manor. I'm gonna blow the hell out of him, and I'll have killed Batman. And isn't that awesome? And he totally did. He totally took everybody, went over to Wayne Manor, was absolutely gonna do it, and then he realized that the only thing that was keeping him alive was Bruce Wayne. And that if he missed, that like this was going to be a problem. And this is honestly where I think the best part of the Bendis story comes in, is this examination through like Oswald Cobblepot's vision of what makes Batman Batman, and that it's the persona of Bruce Wayne that keeps him tethered to humanity. And so because of that, Batman won't go and take that step into the abyss. He won't take things to the next level and possibly kill, or worse, I don't know what could be worse, but he won't take that step. And if he killed or like set his bombs off and destroyed Wayne Manor, everybody in, there's a big party going on, and Bruce Wayne died, Batman could then go on without that tether to humanity and potentially just wreak havoc on everything. And he realized that that was not something he could do. But he wanted to come at the end of Bruce's life and just tell him that he was smarter than him. At the end of the day, that's what this is all about, is that the Penguin is like, I'm smarter than you. All right? I win. I did it. And then Bruce uses a like taser that's in his wheelchair and electrocutes him. And he tells them that he knew the whole time that he was the Penguin, or that the Penguin knew, and that the Penguin was a coward. and he's just like, you know, Penguin's being dragged away. He's like, you said you couldn't, that you couldn't speak anymore. I can't believe this. And basically it ends with him being like, that was a good visit. And obviously at the end of this, you probably knew that Bruce would know that the Penguin knew he was Batman. There's almost no way it's the Penguin. But again, what I really did like about Bendis's approach to this was the idea that Oswald Cobblepot thinks that Bruce Wayne is the key to Batman not losing his stuff, his mind, basically. I wanted to use another word, but I'm not. We're on YouTube. And honestly, for me, you just can't beat Alex Maleev's art. It's just such a treat. Such a treat to look at. So I really enjoyed that, if nothing else than for how it looked and those little moments. And again, very comfortable, easy to read story. Now we head on over to another future story. Very different, obviously, totally different timeline here. It's The Last Crime in Gotham. Written by Jeff Johns with art by Kelly Jones. The last one. He's finally done it. Batman beat all the crime. All of it. He's good. He did it. So everybody can go home. We're good. We totally nailed it. And we see a Batman who has a very different Bat family. We see a grown-up Damian Wayne. We see a Catwoman who clearly Batman is either married to and or has, totally banged, because they have a daughter who's like an amalgam of Batman and Catwoman at once. And there is, her name is Echo, by the way, and there's a new Bat Hound there. And basically, the bat signal's fired up. It hasn't been fired up in a really long time, not like since they pretty much put away all the criminals. And Gordon calls him in and is like, check this out, it's real messed up. It's a birthday party, and there's like 12 people there. They're all dead. They're all wearing holiday sweaters. So, like, immediately you're like, it's the birthday boy. It's Calendar Man. It's the holiday killer. It's none of these people. Instead, again, we focus on the pseudo-detecting. This is kind of more of a Sherlock Holmesian sort of detecting style, where there's something that the writer knows he's not going to tell us so that Batman can be smarter than us. But at the end of the day, they realize that there's a note there. They pick up one of the individual's heads, and it's the face of the son of the Joker. The Joker had a son, or has basically someone who's followed in his footsteps. May not actually be a son, but they indicate, yes, that it is, that there's some sort of family involved there, and that they're like, oh my gosh, the Joker did it. And it's like, nope, the Joker actually died last night. Turns out that the Joker's son ended up killing himself and a bunch of people because, like, he couldn't live in a world without his family. And, like, if we're not for our family, then what are we? And at the end of this, Batman's like, we have destroyed all the crime. And he, like, basically takes out the bat signal, getting rid of it entirely. And we see him in the Batcave, all, like, with Alfred. And then he's left alone with a birthday cake. And I'm like, what does this have to do with family? You have a family, and yet you're sitting down here with your prizes. Because I guess that's Batman's family? I don't know. Seemingly you've gotten over this, and yet, I don't know. This story was a little bizarre for me, and I'm not a huge fan of Kelly Jones's art. Let's be honest. He's done some really cool images in the past, but I've not always been a fan, and certainly not a fan here. It's just kind of all over the place. Anatomy's kind of wonky at best. The coloring does it zero favors. It's not for me. It's just, it wasn't for me. But hey, at least crime is done. You can just put a pin in that. We're good. We're good. 10 out of 10, no more crime. It's good. We're totally okay. But it's just a little unfortunate there. Let's see. We have another super chat from Jake Vader 93. Thank you so much, saying hello. $5 for the best comic channel on YouTube. You are too kind. Thank you so very much. Saying also DC 1000 was good. It was good. I agree. It was good. It's good. It's totally good. Let's go on to the next story, which I kind of enjoyed. Now, of course, I'm a little jaded I'm loving James Tynion IV writing Justice League Dark, so I was really geared up for this one. The Precedent, written by James Tynion IV, with art by Alvaro Martinez Bueno, who I'm also a fan of. This is like a great team for me. And this is Batman. Now we're going back in time. We're gonna go back. We're gonna go back. This is Batman early in his career, shortly after the death of the Graysons, and it's a conversation between Alfred and Bruce about the idea of bringing Dick in. And honestly, Bruce is second guessing himself. Maybe I shouldn't have done this. This is a bad idea. Like, kids have got to go to school, and like, what kind of life is this going to be? I don't understand. And in this version, Alfred's like, yeah, but like, this is the right thing, because at the end of the day, you're going to be able to give him closure that no one else can, and so much more that you can't conceive of. Like, from it, we see him friendship, romance, with Starfire there, which I love that nod. It could have been Babs, that would have been cool too, but we see Starfire there. And just the adventure and the idea that Alfred has is that, like, having Robin there might also, like, reinvigorate the passion for adventure and, like, hope in Batman. You know, we see, like, the potential of him getting older, becoming Nightwing, and the idea that at the end of the day, that with Batman's training, he could be as good as him, if not better, because he'll be forged in the light. And I just love this idea of, like, Alfred's support of this, because he recognizes that Dick and Bruce need each other, but Bruce is concerned, like, what about the others? And, like, Alfred doesn't know what he means, and he's just like, we are setting a precedent here. There are going to be others that we, like, other young people who we look into the eyes of, and we see that we have to do something. It's all about the growing of the Bat family, of course, whether you dig that or not. I really liked this conversation and, like, this kind of, like, almost sort of retconning moment. Dick, of course, has been swinging along on the chandeliers, being the acrobat that he is. And he's just saying, look, here's the thing, at the end of the day, I already know, and I'm already on board. Like, let's go show them how we do this. And, like, it's just such a heartwarming story, and it's just fun to see everybody really happy. So, just very nice. I think Tynion does a good job, again, in this short form. So, you know, kudos to him. I love that last page, splash page, or that last splash page that they do, that one full page, basically, Batman and Robin, old school Robin with the pixie boots, you know, jumping into action, and we see him, like, being, like, basically sworn in by Batman into this whole crazy world that they live in. And I was like, that's pretty cool. Like, that's very, very cool. So let's chat now about, we got 2 more stories left. One of them is going to be indicating where Detective is going, and one of them is by Tom King. So let's chat about the Tom King story. I went into this really not thinking about, like, either way, liking it or not. Oh, hey, thank you so much for your super chat there, Super Cliff. That's technically still in between the 2 stories, so I'm going to jump into that now. Saying, hey, Tiff, hope all is swell. It is. It's very nice. I'm a little lonely here with no Sal, but still. Heard you're digging Doom Patrol. Really, really am. Finished episode 6 and such, and it's such a dope show. It is so dope. I really like it. Keep up with the great work. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for your super chat. As a sidebar, yes, I am loving Doom Patrol. It's just so great over on DC Universe, the show. Yes, Robot Man looks a little funky. There's something with the prosthetic that they're using. It's like, it's off, but trust me, once you get used to it, it takes kind of the first episode to just kind of get used to seeing him like that. It's just so much fun. It really is. I even got over the fact that Cyborg's connected to them. Totally got over it. I'm okay with it. This is a totally different Doom Patrol. All in. Anyway, let's talk about Batman's Greatest Case, written by Tom King with art by Tony S. Daniel and Joelle Jones. What I thought was interesting about this was the stark difference. And again, I thought this was a really good example of how to end one of the stories and start the next one. You get the end, very obvious from the Tynion story, and then the DC Comics presents color cues, very obviously the bright orange, you know, light between Bruce and Dick in the previous one, to this stark gray and blue rainy day there. And then they decide to do the credits like their movie credits. Kind of cool. So, okay. this is a fine story. This wasn't my favorite at all. But it's fine. There's a lot of banter in this. If you dig banter, you're gonna dig this. If you, in particular, dug the banter between Scott Free Mr. Miracle and Big Barda from Miracle Man, then or Mr. Miracle. Wow, I'm all over the place. I'm a little tired. From Mr. Miracle, Tom King's, epic miniseries, then you're probably gonna like the writing in this, because the banter between the Bat family feels a lot like that. Whether it fits or not, I leave that up to you. I thought it was okay. At the end of the day, we get a lot of conversations that are going on over images of Bruce in the rain, going to a cemetery. Obviously, we're doing another anniversary of his parents' death kind of story. He goes to visit his parents. And then we cut to Nightwing and Damian chatting, and it's cute because they're kind of getting along via butting heads. We see that the rest of the Bat family's there. Basically, everyone's been called out over there. We got, Batgirl, spoiler, Batwoman, Duke's there, Red Hood. Everybody's there. Huntress, Catwoman, Alfred, Ace. They're all there. Nobody knows why they are present for that. They do make a joke about the fact that crime must be running rampant right now. And they're literally trying to figure out what could it be. Is Jason going to get kicked out? Oh my gosh, is it this? Is it that? I don't know. It's just a lot of fun conversation goes on in this. And then at the end of the day, it turns out the reason he called them was to use a Batarang that he had used before to take a photo so that he can bring it to his parents' grave and leave it there as a way of showing them his new family, which is lovely. This is a lovely story about that. The photo that they take is really, really fun. We do see the very serious Tom King Batman there, surrounded by the more fun-loving other characters. And there you go. Now, I'm going to just mention a couple of things that kind of irked me about it. It might be me nitpicking. I don't know. Take it as you will or don't. It's up to you. I'm just going to tell you something that I did notice. I thought it was sort of weird that that Batman was going to take a photo of the entire Bat family, have Alfred Pennyworth in the photo, full on, here's my face, everybody else is in costume, and then leave said photo in a public cemetery. That was my only, that was one of my things where I was that just seems like a mistake, because probably nobody will find it, but what if? What if you watched Bruce Wayne go in there and you're like, oh man, let's go take a picture of Bruce Wayne. You're a messed up person, or you're I'm gonna get so many likes on Gothamgram by taking a photo of Bruce Wayne mourning his parents. Oh, what'd he leave? Why does he have a picture of Batman with his butler? So I was it's a really bizarre thing, because more than likely that wouldn't happen, because as the writer you wouldn't let that happen, but still I was don't leave it. Just don't leave it out. Also, one other thing I kind of wish that he had done was, typically we think of Batman's ritual of the anniversary of his parents' death is to go to Crime Alley and to take a moment there, leave the rose, just kind of have an introspective moment there. In this, they mention the idea of the ritual and it being that the next day he's going to go to the cemetery to see his folks. Fine, that's cool. I feel like King was almost there, because I feel the point of his story is that while he doesn't have his conventional nuclear family, he does have one, and maybe this could have been an instance in which we see Batman grow a little bit, and that he doesn't need that ritual. But since they mention it and they do kind of change it, I don't know. I feel it would have been better if they were first of all, it surprises me that none of the Bat family remember that the anniversary of Bruce's parents being murdered is upon them. Kind of surprises me. But the fact that any of them, instead of saying oh, it's his ritual and now he'll go and do this, could have been oh, it seems like instead of him doing this, he's taking a photo with us. It's a new ritual. We're almost there. We're almost there. But overall, it was an okay story. We're almost there, but still a fun, really fun image. Like at the end of the day, you get a really cool, like fun image of all the Bat family together. Ace the Bat Hound making a great face there. I love Batwoman looking extra epic. She has like the most wind in her cape possible. So cool. Very cool. And now we're going to talk about the last story. But before we do that, I'm going to hop on over to the Super Chats where Kyle Johnson, thank you so much for your Super Chat, saying, "Hey Tiff, love the channel and wondering, will you cover Mr. Miracle?" Yes. Yes, we will. Absolutely. I'm halfway through rereading it. Yeah, no, we're going to be talking about that soon enough. Not to worry. It's coming up. But there is a whole backlog of other things. But yeah, it's coming. Thank you for your Super Chat again. And then the final story in Detective 1000 is written by Peter J. Tomasi with art by, hold on, I'm getting to the bottom here, Doug Menke. Menke. That's how Sal says it, so I'm just saying that. Basically, this is kind of letting us know where Detective is going after 1000. This entire issue is just narration. And it's the narration of the character everybody knew was coming. It's the Arkham Knight. Who is the Arkham Knight? The thought on everyone's mind, at least if you're reading Detective. Who is it? Lots of people have ideas, and I'm sure you guys in the chat have plenty of ideas who the Arkham Knight is. But this is just Tomasi ending this book basically the way they kind of did Action, where Bendis kind of had like a final say, being like, and this is where we're going. Tomasi does the same thing here. And again, we get to see some really fun like fight sequences. I'm not a huge fan of the art on this one. Some of it's really cool. Some of it's a little shaky. Some of the coloring's pretty epic though. But basically we get some narration about how close this individual has been to Batman, and that the fact is it's like Batman whose fault it is, because like, he doesn't get that like these people just need help and that they just see things like the world differently. And like we're talking about like the Joker they're referencing and Killer Croc. Mr. Freeze, you get a pass. He's occasionally, depending on who's writing him, Mr. Freeze is just kind of a poor individual who can never touch his wife, who's in a tube forever. But that clearly the person who is narrating, this Arkham Knight, has a very different view, delusional as it may be, depending, I guess, on which like side you're on here. But that the idea is that the Arkham Knight is here, and he's here to stay, and that like he's going to be showing Batman like what for. Even at the end, he says like, say Batman as fast as you can, just say it as much as you can, and like the idea that it becomes bad man. He's a bad man. We don't want him anymore, and I'm going to show Batman true justice. And we see the Arkham Knight here with like his crazy like almost Duke-like helmet, kind of. Obviously not Duke, but still. And he's got a sweet sword, and I guess we're going to find out what Tomasi is going to be doing with the Arkham Knight, who the Arkham Knight is. I'm sure Tomasi will be holding on that one for quite a while, building up the, whatchamacallit, the whole, like, mystery behind it. It is detective, after all, so there should be something of a mystery, right? So there you go. That's Detective 1000. In the book, you'll also find some cool other art by other artists who weren't paired up with a writer, including Jason Fabik has a pretty amazing 2-page double splash there. Just lots of characters there in some of their current incarnations and other incarnations of them. So really, really very fun to look at, honestly. The Mikhail Yanin piece, super amazing. Super, like, again, very retro feel to it. Just really, really cool. I love seeing these artists just go for it. But yeah, I honestly really had a great time with this book. So many different stories. These kind of books get me excited. It gives people the opportunity to, have a favorite and not feel like bad about it. You know what I mean? There's literally I think a story in here for most everybody, and everybody can have a favorite. It's totally okay. nothing was totally terrible. I'm not, again, my least favorite was the Denny O'Neil one, I think, just because of how sort of out of character it was. Just wasn't a huge fan of that. I really enjoyed so many of the stories in this. So much of the art. The art was so much fun throughout this entire book, except some of the times when it wasn't. Again, not a Kelly Jones fan, but I haven't hidden that from anybody. So if you are, I totally get it. He's a classic artist. So I agree. Kevin Smith's story, great. Snyder's story was great. Elements of the Tom King story, I really enjoyed. Elements of the Bendis story, I really enjoyed. There are a lot of great notes in this, and it's a really fun celebration of not only Batman, but again, the family he comes from, some of his rogues gallery, and the idea of Batman being the world's greatest detective. We see a lot of that in this one. So if you didn't get yours, you should go out and definitely pick it up. There's a lot of variants that go along with this, of course. We just have the standard Jim Lee one. Check it out. Looks pretty amazing. Now I'm going to jump on down into the Super Chats before giving a few recommendations and kind of bringing this whole episode to a close. Let me see what we got down here. Oh my gosh, you guys are so sweet, so kind. Thank you so much, that PR dude, for your thanks, Danielle. I'm gonna jump back up there. Thank you so much to Sam Anderson for your super chat, saying crazy that 3 people tackled the Bat family and Tynan was the one who nailed the point the best. Though I'm a Dick fan first, so biased. That's fair. That's absolutely fair. Tynan's story, definitely one of my favorites, really hit me just the right way. But that interaction and that sort of care and love that we see Alfred give to Bruce is definitely my jam, so I'm definitely biased in that sense. That's not everybody's, cup of tea there, but for me, I really enjoyed that one too. Definitely, absolutely. So thank you for your super chat. Now, that PR dude, thank you for your super chat, saying you are great, Tiff. Thank you. You're too kind. So happy to see you host today. Well, thank you. Again, we couldn't go 2 weeks without giving you guys an off the rack. That just would not be cool at all. That would not be dope. That'd be like anti-dope, which is like, I guess, good when you're considering other things. I don't know. But no, thank you very much. Cash Money in the Bank. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for your incredible super chat, saying any tips on buying comic art for display? There's little variety in prints and posters and often have big logos on them. Original art is way expensive. Would love something to hang at home. Sorry for the big question. You rock. That is not a big question. That's a great question, honestly. I know your plight. That does tend to happen. A lot of cons are going to be your go-to for that. You're going to have to go around. You're going to have to look at some of the various vendors. Occasionally, we definitely have found there are some of those comic book page bins. They have those there if you're looking for anything like that. Some of them have some really great bargains, and it could be something that you could do almost as a triptych to put up. But if you're looking for that big, colorful, like poster-like art, some of it, if you're not looking for necessarily like literal art from the comics, like you're like, I want this panel or I want this cover, even some of the covers you probably could, I would follow up with the artists. Some of the artists do sell some of their prints separately, or definitely visit Artist Alley when you go to a con. A lot of the artists there are really high caliber. Even if they're not working on a current book right now, a lot of them do have prints, and a lot of them, like the ones who are working currently right now, have prints of things that they have done because they want to sell those. So I would definitely check those out, because a lot of times, since it's their art, they don't put the logo on it. They just have their art there. So I would definitely check that out. I think it's a really good place to start. Otherwise, there's a couple of comic book communities out there, people who have collections and they're looking to sell some things off. Not a bad place to look. I would avoid places like eBay, just because you don't know if it's authentic. You don't want to pay an arm and a leg for that, because like you said, original art is very expensive, and then to find out it's not even authentic is pretty much the worst. But I definitely would check that out. Thank you so much for that question. Sam Anderson, thank you so much again for another super chat, saying weird how Batman didn't kill anyone in this. In light of recent news stuff, that's kind of it's a fair comment. It's a fair comment. Also, if anyone else has any hidden treasure troves of where else did you buy your comic book art for display, feel free to throw it into the chat. I definitely, I got another one. Mondo. Go check out Mondo. They do limited runs of absolutely stunning, stunning posters. They do a lot of stuff for Marvel and for DC. They recently did a whole bunch of Spider-Verse stuff. Go check them out. TMNT, all that stuff. Just beautiful, beautiful art. You got to be on top of it though sometimes because they do run out really, really quickly. There's even a another booth, and I can't remember their name, but they were at New York Comic Con. We have a couple of their prints. Beautiful prints. Just beautiful, high quality prints. No logos on them. Just stunning. I wish I could remember the name of them. But yeah, so there you go. I'm going to jump into a couple of recommendations. I tried to pull some stuff I thought Sal would recommend, including Justice League number 21, written by Scott Snyder with art by Jorge Jimenez. Sal has been singing the praises of this book since it came out. He's really digging what Snyder is doing with the whole Justice League here. He's got a whole storyline going on here, and we've got to enjoy Snyder while we can, because my understanding is Snyder is going to be busy in a little bit with another wee little babby. So, you know, we'll see how much Snyder can pile onto himself at that point, but this is going to be Snyder right now at the top of his game, so you might want to check that out. I am also going to say that both of us would probably recommend The War of Realms, number 1, written by Jason Aaron. This is it. Jason Aaron's been leading up to this whole thing, whether you like what he's doing over there with Avengers or not. This is where we're going, the War of the Realms. We're back to really what Aaron seems to love the most, which is Thor. We're dealing with the realms. I'm definitely gonna be checking that out. Regardless, the War of the Realms, by the way, is going to have like 1,000 variants. So if you're a variant fan, this one's for you guys. This one is for you. So go check that out. Also from Snyder, Conan the Barbarian, number 5, written by Jason Aaron, is going to be coming out as well. Gorgeous, gorgeous Assad Ribic cover on this one yet again. Again, we're dealing with King Conan and the Crimson Witch. If you didn't check out Conan the Barbarian number 4, I highly recommend that one. We're really seeing King Conan in like dealing with being a king and how it's not all it's cracked up to be. So I'm loving this series. I'm also going to be giving a shot to Section 0, number 1 by Image Comics, written by Carl Kessel. I'm going to check it out. It's a mini-series. Looks like it's a 6-part mini-series. They're basically touting it as Jack Kirby does the X-Files. I'm totally going to give it a try. I'll let you guys know what I thought about it. Also from Image, you can check out Die number 5. If you're a Kieran Gillen fan, this has got to be for you. If you're a D&D fan, you got to check this out. It's Jumanji and D&D, just all sick and twisted. There it is. I also want to mention that The Dreaming number 8 will be coming out. It's going to be the second part of that story from The Dreaming number 7, which Dreaming number 7 was my favorite issue of The Dreaming so far, so I can't wait to read this one. And just as a laugh, as a lark, as just something funny to say aloud, I just want to let you guys know, I'm not recommending it, but Major X number 1 is coming out. It's written by Rob Liefeld, with art by Rob Liefeld. So that's coming out from Marvel. Who is Major X? We're going to find out. So there you go, guys. That has been Off the Rack. Thank you very, very much for hanging out with us. Don't forget to head on over to the channel where you can catch Good, Bad, and Ugly. We just did one on Spider-Man and his happy endings, which just sounds horrible, but there it is. If you are joining us after the fact, thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. To those of you who hung out with us today, thanks for all your super chats and your general conversation. You guys are amazing. So much fun. Thanks for putting up with a one-person stream. Super appreciate it. And those who are listening to us after the fact on podcast stuff, hello, welcome. Thanks for listening to us. And to all those new from Spotify, hi, how you doing? We have a YouTube channel over at youtube.com/ComicPOP. You can come in and hang out with us. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I will see you probably on Wednesday. I might be doing an Off the Rack. We'll try to figure it out. I don't know. I don't know what we're going to be doing. But otherwise, if nothing else, Back Issues is still coming out Wednesday night into early Thursday. So I'll see you guys then. Have a great evening, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.